Hello, and thank you for clicking on this video. In today's video, we're going to be ranking all Warzone perks. This is Warzone Vet, and I like Warzone, but it's sad to see that the developers haven't really changed any of the perks since the game came out. I really wish that they had made some adjustments, changes to make some in line with others, but there's only certain perks people go for. I always hear go for ghost, getting ghost, or we get overkill so we get the guns we want. But it's sad to see that besides that, we don't see a lot of variety within perks. This is going to be, I guess, a part 1 to a two-parter. In the next video, I am going to be explaining how we can change the perks that aren't super good, but in this one, I'm just going to create the tier list and show you why I think certain perks are blatantly overpowered. So, first up, we have Restock. Restock is an okay perk. The issue, I think, lies within the fact that it is a second column perk, and there are 2, maybe 3 perks that beat it out in that column. And because your lethals and tacticals do come back, they come back over a time of 50 seconds. That can be useful if you're going to be using your lethals and tacticals a lot, but if you're not, or you're not accurate with them, then this is a perk I would avoid all in all. But I would say it is a solid B tier perk. Next up, we have Amped. Now Amped, I would say, is actually the best of the third column and is going straight to meta. Amped just makes you swap weapons faster, and that helps you in so many scenarios. Oh, it also makes you reload RPGs. I forgot that part. But it makes you reload RPGs faster, but the most part is swap weapons, and swap weapon speed is super important in Warzone, so it is definitely going in the meta tier for me. Next up, we have EOD. Now EOD, I think, competes with one other perk in the first column, but because it does compete with it head on about equal, I would put it in meta as well. See, EOD is a perk that stops explosives from hurting you as much as they would normally, and I think that's very useful because it's not really something you have to think about using. It's just there to protect you, and that's pretty simple to use. So yeah, it gets a meta tier because you don't just die in one grenade. If you get stuck with EOD, you will die, obviously, but 1 or 2 grenades won't just crack your armor and kill you. You can survive it. Next up, we have High Alert. High Alert, I would say, is A tier, but high and A tier. You get to almost know where enemies are with High Alert, because if they're aiming at you from behind or the sides, you get these yellow flashes on your screen that says an enemy is that direction. So it almost tells you what way you should go. And I think that is very useful in Warzone. The issue lies, again, within the fact that there are other perks competing in this column. I think column 2 has a lot of solid perks, High Alert being one of them, but I just don't think it's up in the meta quite yet. Oh, next up is Shrapnel. Now Shrapnel gets a solid trash. Yeah, Shrapnel does actually nothing for you in the game. It gives you 3 grenades, and that's it. Shrapnel's one of the ones I actually have a couple of buffs in mind for that you can work around grenades with, but all in all, it is just not a good perk, and if you're running it, I would definitely swap it. Next up is Tune Up, And just to be sure, I'm pretty sure you get revived quicker. Yep, you revive 25, I believe, percent faster is what it is, and that's useful, but I think the issue lies with the fact that you shouldn't be getting downed in Warzone. I mean, yeah, it happens, and a revive is nice, but if you get downed, either one, you're gonna get thirsted, or two, you're already safe on a rooftop. So it doesn't really, you're gonna get the revive off it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. With all that being said, I think it is the first in the C tier. Next up is Battle Hardened, and I think it's similar to Tune Up in that, as I said with Tune Up, you shouldn't be getting downed. Well, with Battle Hardened, you shouldn't be getting stunned or flashed or whatever, grass grenaded. It happens, and yeah, but if you get stunned or flashed by an enemy, then they're gonna have the upper hand as well. And so I think while it's a decent perk, it's just not on par with EOD in my opinion. So I think Battle Hardened is gonna go C tier, but I actually think it's better than Tune Up, so it's gonna get like a C plus, debating a C B minus, but I don't think so. All right, next up we have Spotter. Yes, this one's Spotter, the other one's Tracker. Now Spotter, this one is the one that lets you hack enemy equipment. It's good, I guess, but again, Amped is in this, and Amped will be so much better in a gunfight. If someone is camping with a mine and you change it against them, but you have to be right next to them and you have to pull out the pad and do all that stuff, then they can just shoot you, so might not be worth it. But I think it's a C tier overall. I don't think it is super great, but in some scenarios it can be funny. I've seen definitely some clips where they hack them and then they get a team wipe, and that can be funny. Next up we have Tracker. Now Tracker, I think, is a B tier. Basically what it does is it lets you see enemies' footprints if they've been there about 6 seconds beforehand. And this can be useful to know where enemies are, or if they're, let's say you go to a buy station and you see the footsteps, you know, maybe not to buy from that buy station because there are enemies there. It just helps you overall a lot within a gunfight because you'll know which direction they went off to. Sometimes I find the footsteps to be a little bit hard to follow. Like they won't render in right, or they'll look like they turned but they didn't turn, or I don't know, little character movements might be off, but overall I think it's a pretty good perk, but I don't think it's deserving of A tier. I think it fits comfortably in B. Next up we have Double Time. Now Double Time basically makes you have 30% longer tactical sprint as well as faster crouch walk and a little bit faster slide speed, I believe. I put it straight into meta. I think it competes with EOD in my opinion. I love moving around the map super fast, and this really just helps provide that opportunity for it. And so that's why it's solid in the meta tier. Next up we have Scavenger, and this is going to be the second one in the trash tier. Not the A tier, the trash tier. And the reason why is because when you get a kill, it says you get ammo from the enemy you killed, right? Now, the issue with that is when you kill someone, they're 80% of the time, 90% of the time going to have ammo on them anyways. So this isn't going to provide any further buff. But I do think there's a couple buffs we could stay tuned if you want to go ahead and check that out when it comes out. But it gets a trash tier, and I really wish that they would do something about it because it is not that good of a perk right now. Next up we have Cold-Blooded. Now Cold-Blooded I used to run all the time because I thought it would counter the heartbeat, but now I know it's not. Oh, also people used to run a lot of thermal sights, and so Cold-Blooded would counter that. And now there's also a sentry turret in a lot of places, so Cold-Blooded can counter that as well. But the issue with Cold-Blooded is how many people are running thermals and how many people are getting sentries. It is not a lot. But because of the sentry gun implementation to the game, I'm not going to give it trash tier. I would if the sentry guns weren't in the game, but because sentry guns are now in the game, I'm putting it at C tier. Sentry guns leave the game, it's going back into trash. If any kill streak is implemented in the game where it's like an attack drop or something like that, plane that auto targets you, then Cold-Blooded will be a C tier. If none of that's in the game, it will be a trash tier. I hope that makes sense. Next up, we have Kill Chain. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and double check this, but chances of finding kill streaks in supply boxes, no effect in Rumble. Makes sense. Okay, yeah, I thought it was the one that gave you more money on contracts. I think that's the one over here, but that's totally fine. So this one, it's good. You loot and then you get kill streaks more easily. That can be really useful, but the issue I think lies that once you get your loadout, right? Because you've already got your loadout. Once you get this perk, once you get the loadout, you probably have a lot of money by then. Maybe not in solos, but in duos, quads, you probably have a bit more cash already. And I would much rather go for EOD or AMP. But I actually haven't really thought about it, about this perk, but I don't see how it could be terrible, but I don't think it is great by any means, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it in B tier. I've actually never ran it, but it sounds like it could be useful maybe in Plunder. I don't know. Next up we have, I wonder if Kill Chain, going back to this, will work on the Rebirth chest. Let me know what you guys think. Alright, next up we have Quick Fix. Quick Fix is good in Rebirth, not so good in Warzone. I think Quick Fix needs a little bit of a buff personally, and I have a good idea in mind. But basically it just resupplies your health right after a kill, which sounds good, but the issue is there's plates, and plates are more important in my opinion than health. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it into the C tier because it is good in Rebirth, which is why it's not trash. But in regular Warzone, especially in longer scale engagements, you have time to wait and put on plates. Next up we have Hardline. Hardline makes it cheaper, huh? So yeah, Hardline makes kill streaks cheaper at buy stations. Now that's pretty simple, right? Basically you get a UAV for 3,000 instead of 4,000, and all in all it can be very useful just to buy whatever kill streaks you want, UAVs, munitions. Going to be useful and all that, but maybe good for one person to run, but I think it's honestly a C tier. It's not too hard to find 1,000 more in most circumstances. Overkill. So overkill is hard to rank because yeah, you want both of your guns at the beginning of a match, right? But at the same time, it's not a perk that you really want on, because I would rather have high alert or ghosts or hardline on or restock than overkill. Because overkill, just think of it as a perk itself. It's just giving you the second weapon. That part is the useful part, but the perk itself isn't really doing that much. So that's why I always get a second loadout and say like I'm getting ghost, because overkill's already used up by that point. See, it's like hard because if you think of it in that way, it's not that good. It's C or trash. But if you think of it in terms of, oh well, I gotta use my second gun, then it becomes a meta or A tier. So I think it's a B tier. Next up is Ghosted. This one just speaks for itself. You're off UAVs, you're off heartbeats, no one can see you. It's a meta tier, and I really wish they would separate the heartbeat and the UAV, so you have to run cold-blooded and ghost. But that's not the case, and ghost just blocks basically all pings that the enemy could see, except for the radar trend or field upgrade thing. Next up is Point Man. Now this one is the one with the contracts, finally. So basically when you do contracts, you get more money to spend on more items, and that's useful. You and your teams get a recon done, you get to know the intel on the recon, as well as you get more money. So don't see how that's a bad thing. I think the issue lies again where there's ghost, high alert, overkill, hardline, restock. It's gonna go ahead and be in the B tier. And yeah, this is the list, guys. I'm pretty happy with this.